Today, we're going to be talking about a really significant moment, actually, something that happened in the House of Representatives. As I'm sure you've heard by now, the news broke earlier about the passing of Congressman Gerry Connolly from Virginia.
Yes, sad news. And it's clearly had an impact there on Capitol Hill today.
It really has. And so for this deep dive, we're looking at two things essentially that give us different angles on this. First, there's a report from Mediate, and it details the immediate reaction right when the announcement was made during a House Rules Committee meeting.
Okay.
And second, we'll also touch on something called the Tangled Quotes podcast project. Now, it doesn't specifically feature Congressman Connolly's quotes, but it does look at the words of Virginia Democratic representatives more broadly, so there's a connection there.
Right. So kind of the immediate in the moment reaction and then a broader look at how political language works, maybe.
Exactly. Our goal here is really to understand that initial impact, within the House itself, and maybe just appreciate the role and the weight of words from political figures, even, well, especially in moments like this.
Makes sense. Looking at both the specific event and let's say, the more enduring aspect of political communication through that quotes project.
Yeah. So let's start with what Mediate reported happened in the House Rules Committee. This was Wednesday morning, May 21st, 2025. Now, the committee, for anyone not familiar, it's really key. It sets the rules for debate on the House floor.
A very powerful committee and often very partisan, depending on the issue.
Definitely. And on this morning, they were actually meeting to discuss the GOP's tax and spending cuts proposal. So, usually a pretty contentious session.
Right, a place where procedure and party strategy are really front and center. Any interruption would likely stand out.
Absolutely. Then it was around 10:19 a.m. A statement announcing Congressman Connolly's passing went up on his official X Twitter account. And Mediat reports that pretty much right away, the chairwoman of the committee, Virginia Fox, she's a Republican from North Carolina, she acknowledged the news.
How did she phrase it?
Well, the report quotes her saying something very direct like, I think many people need to hear. I just heard that our colleague Gerry Connolly has just passed.
Oh, wow. Just like that. And the report mentioned a reaction in the room.
Yeah, apparently an off-screen voice just said, oh no.
Hmm. That really cuts through, doesn't it? That human element just breaking through the normal proceedings of a committee like that.
It does. It suggests, a personal connection there, even across the aisle. What do you think that says about how his colleagues saw him?
Well, it certainly points to a level of respect, I think, that goes beyond just the day-to-day political battles.
And didn't Chairwoman Fox then call for a pause?
Yes, she immediately called for a moment of silence.
Mm.
And she explicitly said it was absolutely the right thing to do.
Which, in the middle of a potentially very heated debate on taxes and spending, that's quite notable. That bipartisan pause, it really is striking. It kind of raises questions, doesn't it, about the sort of unwritten rules, maybe, in these very charged environments. When does something else just take priority over the usual business?
Exactly. There seems to be a shared understanding there. And Representative Scanlon, a Democrat, also spoke.
Yes. Representative Mary Gay Scanlon from Pennsylvania, she's quoted calling Congressman Connolly certainly a valued colleague and saying his death was quite a loss.
So you have these brief comments, but from both sides. It really highlights that, despite all the policy fights, these are people who work together, sometimes for years, they build relationships.
It's a reminder, isn't it? Behind the political labels, they share this common professional space, this institution.
Definitely.
So the immediate takeaway seems to be that bipartisan reaction, stopping that committee meeting, acknowledging a shared loss. It's a glimpse of the human side beneath the politics. And actually, thinking about those words used, colleague, valued, loss, that kind of leads us naturally to this second thing we wanted to touch on, the Tangled Quotes podcast project.
Right. Because that project is all about the significance of political language,
Yeah.
how words are chosen and interpreted.
Exactly. Its whole focus is analyzing statements, specifically from Virginia Democratic representatives in this case, and breaking them down, especially for people learning English. It gets into the meaning, the expression, the context.
Yeah, it highlights that political talk isn't just about policy points. It's how you say things, the nuances, what resonates.
Precisely. And like we said, while this project doesn't happen to have Congressman Connolly's quotes in its current scope, the approach is really relevant here. Imagine they took a quote from another Virginia rep, maybe about, I don't know, public service or community. The project would kind of dissect it, the vocabulary, maybe the grammar, any cultural things baked into the statement.
And that kind of detailed look really underscores how carefully words matter. They convey values, perspectives, not just raw information. And in moments like this, like someone passing away, the specific words used for condolences, for showing respect, they carry enormous weight. Even the difference between saying someone passed away versus simply died, there are different connotations there.
That's a great point. And even in those very brief comments we heard from Chairwoman Fox and Representative Scanlon, their choices, like you said, colleague, valued, loss, they all contribute to this overall message of respect, of sorrow.
Hmm.
So the Tangled Quotes Project, even though it's about something slightly different, its focus on unpacking language helps us appreciate the layers of meaning, even in these immediate, seemingly simple reactions.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, actually, how analysts might look back at the language used around Congressman Connolly's passing in the coming days and weeks. What themes will emerge, what phrases will stick.
So putting these two pieces together then, we have the immediate, very human reaction in the Rules Committee, that bipartisan pause, and then we have this Tangled Quotes project reminding us that even those immediate words, those brief statements, are significant, they matter, and they're worth understanding.
Right. It shows how these immediate events connect to the broader, ongoing analysis of political discourse. It's all linked.
And for you listening, if you're looking to get a quick handle on political dynamics, this deep dive hopefully gave you a snapshot of a really significant moment and also a perspective on how political language functions, even when it's about expressing sorrow.
Yeah, it's a look at the human side of politics, really, and why understanding the words used in response to these big events is so important.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with. Think about how often, maybe in our own busy lives, we really pause to acknowledge things that affect people around us, especially maybe people we don't always agree with. This moment in the House, this brief instance of shared humanity breaking through the political division, it kind of prompts you to think, doesn't it? About those underlying connections we all have, and maybe the power of just simple words to acknowledge that shared experience, something worth reflecting on, I think.